Good morning. My name is Melanie Raines, and I will be your service associate today. Welcome to the Auburn Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, which is located on occupied ancestral land of the Muskogee Nation and housed in a building constructed by free, formerly enslaved African Americans. We gather here with humility, honoring those who came before us. We extend a special welcome to those of you who are visiting or still getting acquainted with this community, looking for a place you can call your spiritual home. We hope you will feel welcomed and accepted just as you are. We invite you to join us in our mission to build a welcoming and caring community dedicated to challenging the mind, nurturing the spirit, and transforming the world through the pursuit of truth, love, and justice. If you are new, we invite you to add your name and contact information to our visitor log at the other end of the church, near the greeters. If you would like to receive our newsletter or sign up for our listserv, you can go online to auuf.org/subscribe. Now, as we ring the bell to begin our service, please silence your phone. Our opening words are from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We are visitors on this planet. We are here for 90 or 100 years at the very most. During that period, we must try to do something good, something useful with our lives. If you can contribute to other people's happiness, you will find the true goal, the true meaning of life. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. We light a second flame this morning with words by Reverend Tess Baumberger from her prayer on the eve of an election. Spirit of wisdom, as we prepare to elect new citizens to lead us in our communities, towns, and cities, in our counties, states, and our heart-torn nation, grant us wisdom and discernment so that we may choose those of peaceful heart, of competent mind, and servant spirit. Please rise, and you are able in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life, in the gray hymnal. One of the ways we care for our community is by sharing our joys, concerns, and milestones. There is a time for announcements at the end of our service. We begin with a silent sharing and invite you, one at a time, to drop a pebble into our communal bowl. If you have a brief joy, concern, or milestone you'd like to share with the congregation, if you have a brief joy, concern, or milestone you'd like to share with the congregation, please come to the front and share it using the microphone. Please say your name.
My name's Amy. Some of you know my oldest son, Ivan, who's here visiting today, and my youngest son, Leo. Both of them grew up in the fellowship, but Leo just left last week for 27 months in the Gambia, working for the Peace Corps. So,
Good morning, I'm Stephanie Ostrowski, Camilla Herschel's daughter. Want to let you all know that after 6 months in hospice, my mother they decided my mother is stabilized, and so she's going to be moving out of hospice tomorrow and going to Arbor Springs, the long-term nursing care facility next to the hospital in Opelika. She'll be in room 108A. Wait till Tuesday to visit because we're going to be all in the middle of moving her on Monday afternoon. Thanks so much.
I'm Reverend Marti Keller. My daughter, the one that I traveled to do the Transcendentalist road trip, was just diagnosed with breast cancer. So please hold my family in your thoughts and prayers. That's a heck of a thing.
My joy most of the time, as usual, is the choir. I threw this song at them Thursday night. I made a change this morning. We'll see how well they do. But they keep showing up, so they must like torture. I'm not sure what it is, but they make me look like I'm this musical genius, and I'm not. It's them. And I appreciate everything they do.
So sorrow and joy. Sorrow is we lost Ethan Solly in August. Went to his memorial yesterday, but the joy was it was a beautiful memorial, with beautiful words that his father Chuck Hill wrote, and it's just sad to lose somebody who was only 32 years of age. Anyway, another joy in that is that Ellen Abel was Ethan's godmother, and so I got to see Ellen, and Ellen is doing fantastically. She lives in Oregon, and she's singing and playing music recorder with many other musicians. So she's very, very happy.
To all with joys, concerns, and milestones this morning, whether silent or spoken, may you be uplifted by this community and our common humanity. A religious community is like a river formed from the many streams of our individual lives, merging and flowing to the sea. The members and friends of this fellowship share our time, energy, creativity, imagination, vision, talents, and skills. Our metaphorical river also depends on our shared financial support to complement our time and energy. This is the second Sunday of the month when we give our plate to organizations suggested by members of our AUUF community and selected by our social action team. I invite Victoria Jenkins up this morning to tell us about this month's recipient.
Because October is typically the month we do our blessing of the animals, our giving of the plate is to several different rescue organizations. CARE Humane Society, which was formerly Lee County Humane Society, Macon County Humane Society, and Wolf Avenue Rescue.
At this time, we invite you to give as generously as you are able in service of our mission. You may contribute online via PayPal at auuf.org/donate. If you are writing a check, make your check payable to AUUF. You can drop it in the offering bowl or mail it to P.O. Box 669, Auburn, Alabama 36831. Whether by check or online, please note whether your donation is for your pledge or our plate recipient. If this is your first time with us, please allow the offering basket to pass by. You joining us this hour is a gift. Now the offering will be received with gratitude.
Impossible for a plain yellow pumpkin to become a golden carriage.
Impossible for a plain country bumpkin and a prince to join in marriage.
And 4 gray mice will never be 4 white horses.
Such fol-de-rol and fiddly-dee of courses.
Impossible. But the world is full of zanies and fools who don't believe in sensible rules and won't believe what sensible people say. And because these daft and dewy-eyed dopes keep building up impossible hopes, impossible things are happening every day. Impossible.
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 Oh, wait.
I lost control.
It's possible for a plain yellow pumpkin to become a golden carriage.
It's possible for a plain country bumpkin and a prince to join in marriage.
And 4 gray mice are easily turned to horses.
Such fol-de-rol and fiddly-dee of courses.
Quite possible. For the world is full of zanies and fools who don't believe in sensible rules and won't believe what sensible people say. And because these daft and dewy-eyed jokes keep building up impossible hopes, impossible things are happening every day.
Okay, now it's time for our Moment for All Ages with our RE Director Meadows.
Can you hear me? Y'all hear me now? Excellent, thank you. Okay, so today we're talking about helping. Sierra, do you help Desi? You do?
Yeah. Desi, do you help Sierra? Yeah. Do you help mommy and daddy? Maybe? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, of course. I know you do. I know you do. There's all sorts of different ways that we can help, you know, and sometimes we can help in big ways, and sometimes we can help in little ways, like by being a little pillow for our sister when she needs it, or just putting our hand on the little buddy next to us. And so today what we're going to watch, which I'm real slow with technology and all of that, so I don't get out much. So I knew about TED Talks, but I didn't know that they had a TED Talks Youth. Are y'all familiar with this? TED Talks Youth? Oh, I'm blown away now. Everybody's going to get to explore TED Talks Youth. So today what we did was we have a video, and it's from TED Talks Youth. And do y'all know what TED Talks is? Yep, nope. It is. Yeah, it's people who have had experiences or who have information that they can condense down into a very short period of time to share with the world. And it can be all topics of things. And so this one is about how kids can't have gone out and changed the world just by coming up with an idea, by learning something that's going on in their community, and then taking a skill that they have and changing the world with that. This is half of the video. I'm going to send out the other half of the whole thing as a link, and y'all can watch it, because the first half is kind of a message to kids, and the last half is kind of a message to those parents. So, anyway, I hope y'all enjoy this.
Hi, I'm Matt.
And I'm Jack.
And we're here to tell you today that kids really can change the world.
That sounds like a bumper sticker.
It's true. But it's actually something that we believe.
Yes. And how do we know that kids can change the world?
Well,
We met them all over America. This past year, our family took a year-long road trip to all 50 states, and we interviewed over 75 kids who were changing the world and making it better.
now change the world might sound a little bit audacious, maybe even a bit of an exaggeration. But I gotta say, after meeting all these kids around America and some of the projects, they totally blew us away. And they really are changing the world in powerful ways. Take, for example, Nicholas Lowinger. He's from Rhode Island, and over the past few years, he's been able to help donate over 40,000 pair of brand new shoes to homeless children all across America. Or just off the road in Dallas, the Adams sisters have raised over $1 million and been able to help fund over 100 clean water wells all over the globe by folding origami.
Or Joshua in Miami, who's helped distribute over 1 million pounds of food to tens of thousands of hungry families in South Florida. Or Olivia Borden in Colorado, who's started out making handmade dolls for girls in Nicaragua, and now she's gone down and trained women to sew the dolls for her.
Yeah. So clearly, after hearing even just a handful of these stories and interviewing all these people around America, we know exactly what makes kids want to be change makers, right?
We don't, but we're planning to find out.
True. So we're working with some psychologists in the Los Angeles area on a child development study. And what they're doing is they're taking all the interviews that we had and they're studying them to find out exactly what factors actually shape these kids to be change makers. The hope is that with all this information, we can actually go into communities and help communities create environments that really foster change making in future generations.
So what exactly are we here to share about today?
Well, while we don't have all the data from the child development study yet, we did have 3 really intriguing observations that we found while we were on the road that really seemed to hold true for all the kids that we met. And they're observations about how these youth, how these kids were becoming change makers because they were thinking and acting like change makers in really organic and natural ways.
The first observation we made was that all these kids had a trigger experience. It could have been something that happened to them personally, something that could have happened to somewhere in the world, and they couldn't have said no because it was such a massive disaster. Or kids, or maybe people in their own communities. And they paired those experiences to things that they love, things that they're good at, or things that they know. Let's unpack that a little bit more. Lulu Saron is a teenager we met in California who has this love of parties. She learned about the earthquake in Haiti. It hit when she was 10, and she immediately wanted to help. So she grabbed all her friends, and they had a lemonade stand battle. They tried to raise more money than the other person. And in 2 weeks, they raised about $4,000. So that was the start of her idea for philanthropy parties. And philanthropy parties are parties with a purpose. Now Lulu brings social action into her social activity, and she's using something that she loves, parties, to make the world better. Katie Stagliano is a skilled gardener we met in North Carolina. She is really good at gardening, and she grew a 40-pound cabbage whenever she was younger, and she donated it to a local food bank where she lives in Summersville, South Carolina, and she found out that it fed over 200 people. So she thought, what if I could grow a whole garden and fight hunger in my own community? So she did, and she is, and she also gives grants now to kids who want to do that everywhere in the United States. She's using something that she loves, gardening, to make the world better. Elijah Evans is a boy we met in Louisiana who was 2 years old, and his biological mother burned him in scalding water when she gave him a bath. And because of this abuse, he was put into the foster care system, and after he got adopted, he decided to start No Use for Abuse, which works to prevent child abuse through education and advocacy for victims of child abuse. And it also works to create these safe spaces, events that hold at least over 200 foster kids during the holidays, so that they have a place that feels like home. It's a giant celebration. Elijah is using what he knows, his own story, to make the world better. What do you love? What are you good at? And what do you know?
Thanks, Jack. The second observation that we made along the way was that the parents of these kids, or the adults that were around these kids, they stepped out of the way and made space for these kids to run. So some of the parents or the adults were really involved in these kids' projects. They volunteered alongside them, they took them from event to event, and they were really, really encouraging. There were other parents and adults who were a little bit more on the sidelines. They were still encouraging, they were still cheering on, but they allowed the kids to run a little bit more freely, which meant that the kids were running into challenges along the way. The parents didn't run in front and move all the obstacles out of the way and make it all safe and easy. So it was a little less involved. We had other parents that we met and adults who were virtually uninvolved. We met one dad. He actually had no idea what his own daughter did to help serve the homeless in her community.
And she won a national award, and that's how we found her.
Yeah, so he really had no idea what she did. He just knew that she did something, right? But when she came to him, she said, hey, Dad, I need some money to buy bread to make some sandwiches. He gave her $5. But she's like, well, no, I need to make 200 sandwiches for the homeless people in the community. And he gave her $50. So he had no idea what was going on, but he still didn't say no. And in the process, helped to empower her work and really connect in the community.
Okay. So now you just got to think about what are you good at and how can you apply that to help others. Okay. That's y'all too.
May your minds be open to new learning. May your words bring truth into the world. May your hearts know love and your hands do justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
So before I do my, what I'm calling spoken word today, sometimes we call them sermons or homilies, do you want to stand up for a minute? Take a little nap right now. And as we stand up for a minute to feel the energy and the love in the room, look around and see this is our community, week after week. And isn't it amazing? Okay, you can be seated. Also, before I get started, I always want to thank, and I always leave people out, but I want to thank Melanie. This is her very first time being service associate, and she's doing a great job. And Daryl, every week, I mean, you can do it. And Victoria for talking to us about the plate, and Andrew, always your music, and Martha and the choir, and Meadows, thank you for, she's gone, I think, thank her for the story. And we just couldn't do these things without, so let's give everybody a clap. And I wanted to introduce, I don't have to introduce her, you know her. Amy Phillips, would you like to please stand up? Yeah. Amy actually bid on the sermon at the auction. You get to bid on a sermon. So she was the sermon award-winning bidder this year. That gave her a chance to tell me what she wanted to have spoken about. She also was very involved in picking some of the hymns and picking out the opening words came from her preference and the closing words. So she really took advantage and really helped me to put together this service. So I really appreciate it. So I asked her, what is the takeaway that people are supposed to take away at the end of this service, which is always very challenging to me since sometimes that isn't completed till Sunday morning. But what work can AUUF do that affirms our new mission? Because without works, it's just words. And she said, I might have had it wrong. It might be that the sermon asked the question versus giving answers. And yeah, pretty much. But I just think, let's give her an applause for it. And the auction is coming up, and I'm sure that there will be a sermon to be auctioned off again. So I'm looking forward to working with someone else. It's really lots of fun. So I've always been a UU. Well, that's technically speaking not true because I'm old enough to not have had the merger yet. So who's really smarty pants today and can tell us when the merger was between the Unitarians and the Universalists? What?
1961.
61, 62, I think. But anyway, I'm older than that, and I was taken to UU congregations when I was I think you might be right now. I have always been a UU, and then us have always been taught and coached to be spiritually curious, restless, doubting, believing, searching, growing, and trusting most of the time on my own soul's journey. I grew up in UU religious education, listening and reading and learning about an assortment of religious practices and worldviews, touching and tasting them in cathedrals and temples and meeting halls. When we used to have a class called Church Across the Street, now we call it Neighboring Faith. So at a very young age, because that's all there were, I visited other churches. As we got more expansive, and I began to teach that class, by the way, then we had the whole range of religious communities to visit. Then there was God and Jesus and Moses and Krishna and Buddha. All were names and stories that were familiar to me from a very young age. At whatever stage I was in my own intellectual and moral and spiritual development, they were all there for me, these spiritual guides for my quest to live a good life, because that's what I was taught we were here to do. Take everything else away, Unitarian Universalists are here to live a good life and be good to people around us and to act in the world around me. It was as natural as breathing for me to take in all this curious richness, to distill it, to digest it, to work it in and around and sometimes out of my system. After all, I was a UU, alive to ideas and compelled to understanding. So a good and immodestly maybe even righteous UU, I grew into a social activist and journalist on a mission of prophecy and reform. First, I worked on this in the arts and culture, then the reproductive rights movement, and then in the area of child and family policy. But after 20 years or so, I was tired, I was tapped out, I was a warrior woman, cynical and empty. I found myself railing against a society that wouldn't work the way that I thought it should. How many of you can raise your hand and tell us that you've done that? Okay.
a narcissistic worldview that left me angry and lonely and ineffective and wretched. I was doing in the world, but why and what was I doing it for? Well, I wasn't alone. There were a lot of people around me, very busy acting, but where were we collectively coming from? Where was our common vision and commitment? As Marian Wright Edelman has asked, you know, the head of children's, Children's Defense Fund. My God, I love her, and I all of a sudden forgot her name. Anyway, Marian Wright Edelman said, or asked, what does God command of us in terms of our treatment of the children and the poor? What does it mean in terms of how we relate to our children and how we speak to our children? Where is our religious and moral base for building a just society? After a few years of wrestling with this question, I discovered that the center, that the place I come from and the place I can go out of is my UU faith. And I can tell you how unashamedly that this is where I witness from on the injustices in the world. And this liberal faith in church home is the source of my mission. It always has been. I just didn't pay attention. That's why, in the spirit of trying to understand what my mission was, that I unhesitatingly enrolled in a course called The Mission of the Church in a Pluralistic Society, my very first semester at Keller School of Theology, Emory University, which was overwhelmingly populated with Methodist and Baptist and other Protestant students. Trust me, I wasn't even thinking it would be a bizarre beginning for my seminary studies. I was immediately buried in terminology that, believe me, as a Unitarian Universalist, I had never heard of and hadn't a clue about. Maybe you did from growing up, maybe some of you in Protestant denominations. The Great Commission, the Great Awakening, mission field, syncretism, you get the picture. And then my fellow students, 2 Methodist missionaries, 1 Church of the Nazarene, 1 Southern Baptist, and 1 unaffiliated Evangelical, were all told to describe our backgrounds and our perceptions and visions for church mission. And then I knew I wasn't in Kansas anymore. When asked to share mission memories, one colleague's earliest recollection of world mission was of slideshows of foreign countries by visiting missionaries, which always concluded by singing the song, "People Need the Lord." Another said that from his early youth, he had been told that there were people in the world who didn't go to churches like his, and he decided that anyone who didn't attend a Christian church must have been a savage hiding in the bushes waiting to shrink some heads. The unattached evangelical said that for him in 1976, mission was a place he used to go. You see, he was in the Navy and poor, and he could go mission in Chicago, have a bunk to sleep in and breakfast. Then he could save his money for entertainment and bar bills. And now he is saved, filled with the Holy Spirit. It would be so easy, and it was so easy for me, a more enlightened UU, to float over the top of that group, knowing that we UUs never think that we are people that have something that other people need spiritually. And that we UUs don't need Jesus or Buddha or Mayor Baba or any religious tag to justify our good works. In fact, our being involved in UU doesn't have anything really to do with our actual deeds in the world at all. We don't do mission. End of question. End of discussion. But is that true? For me, for you, for the UU prophets and pioneers we sing about from our hymnal, for those heroes and sheroes of our faith, was their work beyond their church walls really disconnected from what drew them originally to the UU faith? Or were they witnessing, sometimes quite specifically, to the connection between their liberal faith and their passion for justice and service? So were they not in mission to the wider world? I was 8 years old when I first heard the word mission. My family had gone to California for a year while my father did a postdoctoral fellowship in Berkeley. My parents wanted to spend weekends and vacations touring the state top to bottom, and one way of marking off the journey was to visit the line of Jesuit missions built by Father Junipero Serra, north from Santa Rosa, south to San Diego. Map and guidebook in hand, we set off to see Mission San Rafael, which was the closest one, which I remember as an impressive adobe structure. The chapel and priest's quarters were cool in that hot, pre-air-conditioned afternoons of the 1950s. The sanctuary had rows of burning candles and high ceilings, especially to a child, spooky, silent archways. Best of all, there was a souvenir shop where I could buy a little ceramic model of the mission, or maybe a postcard or a plastic statue of the canonized Father Serra. So my first impression was a benign but religiously vague one of an historic landmark connected somehow with the civilizing beginnings of the state of California, not with spiritual conversion. However, being who I was in the UU family I grew up in, it was less than 15 minutes before my mother showed me another part of the mission. She insistently pointed out a dusty, grassless cemetery where the Catholics had buried the unnamed Indian children who were living at the mission. My mother told me that the missionaries made these children wear white people's clothing and learn the Christian Bible, that they died of diseases the Spanish missionaries had carried over from Europe. Thus, my second memory is of sadness and anger. I had already visited Indian villages and pueblos. I had watched their ritual dances. I found old arrowheads with the native children. I collected Native American dolls. I thought myself the kin of Sacagawea, the Girl Guide for Explorers, Lewis and Clark. I loved Indian life. What had been so bad that little Indian children had to change or die? I carried this experience into my late grammar school California history lessons, where we looked up Father Serra and missions in the World Book Encyclopedia, and dutifully reported that the missions, quote, fed, clothed, housed, and protected the Indians who lived there in exchange for instruction in Christianity and Spanish language lessons and work on the mission grounds. But the story was sketchy. It was for later school children to learn that the native people were largely responsible for the success of agricultural and manufacturing centers that built up around the missions, and that once these people came to the mission, they were not allowed to leave, except by force. So basically, when I think on it, my experience of mission as a younger person was only on the shadow side, the height of colonialism side, the counting little baptized soul side, the side that only helped in order to save. How many of you come in with that kind of understanding? Many of our church members left their original faith tradition because of this inhumane and sometimes murderous tradition of mission and evangelizing work. They may even now cringe. You may even now cringe at the word mission and may oppose any discussion at all of spreading our faith through community outreach or linking what we do out in the world with UU as religious base, using the word mission. Using the word mission as a way of living into the world, living our faith into the world. But the truth is that UU, now get ready to hear this. Are you ready? Has always been an evangelizing religion and church in mission from both denominational ends of our history. Scott Alexander, who used to be the senior minister of the Church of the Larger Fellowship and a third generation UU, says that the world is desperate for our theology, desperate for a theology centered on tolerance and independence and compassion. It is not the only saving message out there, but our underlying belief, our underlying faith in the inherent worth and dignity of each person and the interdependent web of all existence creates a powerful theology. The Reverend Carl Seberg, a UU historian, says that UU began as a saving evangelical religion, saving people from Calvinism. That was our big mission, saving people from eternal sin. In the 19th century, Universals such as Hosea, Ballou, and Quillen Shin literally rode the circuit all over the country and beyond. Shin was constantly traveling and preaching and organizing congregations saying, Quote, "The grandest recreation I get is working to spread our faith. Every liberal thinker in this region is my parishioner. I own these mountains. I cannot more keep missionary work out of a pleasant excursion than I can keep universalism out of my sermons." That's pretty evangelical. These Universalist missionaries, including Carolyn Sule, fanned out across the new nation in Europe, challenging the Calvinist idea that most humans are doomed to hell, preaching instead that salvation was available to all and that love and compassion was necessary towards all. Dr. Rees-William was the president of the still extant Evangelical Missionary Society in Massachusetts, formed in 1807 to aid the spread of Unitarianism through the distribution of religious tracts and books by supporting school teachers and sending missionaries, UU, or Unitarian missionaries, among the inhabitants of our own country. He spent a lot of his time with the Navajos and the Hopis. UU, Evangelical Missionary Society, that still exists. And of course, we are replete with examples of lay ministry work. Clara Barton, abolitionist Mary A. Livermore, Albert Schweitzer in Africa, those UUs who helped get Jewish children out of Europe during World War II, which was the beginning of the UU Service Committee, and many, many more. And all of us, myself included, who have done the work of our faith and have failed either out of neglect or a sense that is somehow inappropriate or doesn't matter to connect our faith with our actions. How many of us, when appropriate, share that we are UUs, that the tenets of our faith, human dignity, interconnectedness, reason and conscience, and justice and equity, loving the good, undergird the work we are doing out in mission to the world? How many of us, either as individuals or as a congregation, make conscious efforts not to be over and above or isolated and distant by plunging into interfaith conversations, plunging into dialogues with others, working with others that not only clarifies and deepens their understanding of us, but illuminates and deepens our understanding of them. In addition to fighting off the religious right, which we're really good at and need to do, and the religious wounds of the Bible Belt, are we really in there in the struggle with others in our faith community who are still swimming upstream? Are we with them as well? Are we? Here in Alabama, are there opportunities to carry on conversations in faith about our faith in the service of the greater world? Yes. Individually, yes. As an organized group, yes. As a hosting group, yes. As a working group in service to our communities, are we willing to name these dialogues as UU mission? I imagine that we are already about this work. As Quilin Shin said, the time has come to go forth in church extension and missionary activity. If we have been reluctant in the past, let it not be so in the future. Other denominations not as able as ours have been missionaries, agents for their literature, and superintendents to advise and cheer, organizing people, planting and fostering churches, and doing good work. We must do the same. Was not Shin's spirit, his urge to give effective and impassioned voice to his faith, an example that might profit us all today? More to come. So how did I do, Amy? The pressure. It was a challenge. I loved it. Would you please stand if you are as willing and able or in spirit for hymn number 114 in our great hymnal, and it indeed is the music of Onward Christian Soldiers and has a little theistic language in it. But you know, there's a joke about how most Unitarian churches in the old days didn't have choirs because they were too busy reading the language ahead. I urge you to kind of read the language as you're singing the song. I think we do a really good job of describing our mission. That's why I picked it, number 114.
This was, of course, the music was written by Sullivan of Gilbert and Sullivan. who I just learned moments ago was gay and Christian.
Mess with Daryl. I decided, we're gonna put the mission down and we're gonna read it like scripture, okay? We're gonna do our new mission statement. I know there was a lot of hard work that went into it. Unison reading. Adopted May 21st, 2023. Our mission. Auburn Unitarian Universalist Fellowship is a welcoming and caring community dedicated to challenging the mind, nurturing the spirit, and transforming the world through the pursuit of truth, love, and justice. Can we do it? Right, the closing words that were selected by Amy are from Roland Allen. Missionary zeal does not grow out of intellectual beliefs nor out of theological arguments, but out of love.
Please join me in these words as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Before we adjourn, anyone with a brief spoken announcement may come to the microphone.
Hi, I'm Laura. I was glad that this was the auction sermon day because the auction's coming up in a hurry because it's already October, right? Oh. So, the things that can take time to be decided upon are not the things, but the services and dinners, things like that. Because you might want to think about it, how many people you want to provide for it, and all that, and what kind of service you might want to offer up. And those are easy because they're your description. But things that are physical items require photographing and all this documentation and entering the data and all that stuff. So I'm not quite sure how it's working this year, but it will be on the website, I am told. So go to the website to find out all the information about the auction. And I'm trying to step down, or not leaving, I'm just stepping away from many of the auction duties I do. So anybody who wants to take on what I've been doing, and if you don't know, ask me, I'm happy to share the joy.
And you need 2 or 3 people to do as much as she has done.
The Social Action Committee is going to have a table set up in the back for at least a few minutes before potluck to try to continue our work writing postcards for getting out the vote. So there's already a script available. All you have to do is write the address, name and address, and follow one of the scripts. So if you'd like to help with that, we appreciate it. Thanks.
I'm here to recruit people to go to Western North Carolina and do some relief or economic work.
Hi, I'm Robert, and just a quick announcement. It was mentioned before, next Sunday is our annual blessing of the animals. So those of you who don't know, bring your animals. Those walk beside you and those that are no. But bring, people bring their dogs, their cats, their birds, their snails, slugs, and all sorts of things.
And we meet where?
And we'll be meeting over at the Bush Center. And it's going to be run by Carl. Carl, where are you? Carl, Stephanie. They're going to be running the service, and so it should be a lot of fun. The other thing is coming the first Sunday in November, I think it's the 2nd, is our annual Day of Remembrance. And it started a long time ago as kind of a Dios de los Muertos. And it has evolved more into our thing, where we acknowledge those that we have lost in the past year or over time or just in general. And so we get that reminder, of course, over here. So I'm recruiting. Anyone who would like to lead that? Lead and assist? So keep that in mind. See me. I'd be glad to help you get things together. But it's always a very good service for us to think back on those who are no longer with us, at least in body, not in spirit. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Randy Millius here, and I just wanted to remind everyone, as our tradition, after potluck, the board will be convening our monthly meeting at 12:30. And we have reserved time for anyone who needs to bring anything to our attention as far as congregational life. So you're invited at after 12:30. Thank you.
Please stay after the benediction for coffee and conversation and our monthly potluck. Now, let us sing the benediction. The words are in your order of service.
This is